Hey guys, it's Sugar. I'm here with my husband Jeff.
Hello.
And we are here to talk about spring 2018 and what it has to offer.
It's a lot.
There's a lot going on, yeah. Sorry.
I mean, we haven't watched everything, but this is about as full as a plate can get, I think, for us.
Yeah, we basically picked all the things that look super promising, things we were already expecting seasons ago, other ones that...
Intriguing, I think is a word to use for a few of them.
It's such an odd concept to say, but fans of the channel had things that they wanted us to see, so I tried to respect that as much as I could. SAO just won't happen. Sorry for not being on the last few days. I've just been unwell, and then as you saw on my Twitter, I had some dental work that needed to be done. I kind of broke one of my teeth just randomly, so that was fun. Still have stitches.
Super.
But anywho, spring 2018, we'll go in alphabetical order, and so you can get an idea of how we feel about it, what's it kind of about, and so forth. So let's get started. So our first one, the English name is Dances with the Dragons. And yeah, it also goes by the Japanese name of Suredo Sumibito wa Reo to Odoru. Sorry if I slaughtered that. I'm trying. And the series basically takes place in an alternate world. Basically, two guys go around hunting dragons is the very boiled down version of it.
It is very oddly scientific, trying to explain magic. It's a huge. The first episode was just a huge info dump.
Yeah,
so
it was
much
kind of
more,
overwhelming.
Yeah.
Where for me, first episode shouldn't be that overwhelming, but I know they have a lot of ground to cover in the season, so I've been told the manga is very dark, so I'm unsure. I haven't heard word if the anime is going to be just as dark or if they're going to kind of cut around it. Yeah, it's pretty meh, in my opinion. It's very... There's nothing really that stands out where, this will be so good. The only appealing thing... I shouldn't say the only, but the appealing thing for Jeff and I was the fact that it had dragons. And we kind of have a soft spot, as you've seen me watch Rage of Bahamut.
Rage of Bahamut, though, is just a very good anime in general.
Yeah, and so we wanted to watch this. And a lot of, the fight scenes kind of seemed a little bit on the side of Fate's Day in the sense of oversaturation, lights, less about the fighting and the intrigue, more about just the showiness.
And I mean, I understand, I get it. I always get the same sort of complaint whenever I talk about how I don't like how Fate's Day looks, and they're like, it's magic. It's supposed to look different. It's supposed to differentiate itself from everything else that you've seen before. And I'm like,
right.
I get that, but that doesn't, just because it's different doesn't mean that I enjoy it. And it's the same thing with Suredo. That's what I'll call it.
Dances with the Dragons.
And anybody who's paid attention to our podcasts knows that I like it when you get a lot of backstory. I like world building. I like intriguing political stuff. But this just feels like they spent so much time info dumping everything.
Yeah.
And I felt like I was already behind. If I didn't read the
it's you gotta
source,
catch up.
I'm like, wow, this is a lot of political intrigue to understand. This is a lot of science for explaining magic and pocket dimensions and we just rewrote the laws of physics because our science got so good that we could do that. And now we live in the best I could get is it's an alternate universe where magic exists. And there's some really cool ideas in there. Everybody has their own weapon that is unique to their own energy, their own science, whatever you want to call it. It just feels way too much.
And if it sounds like we kind of don't know what we're talking about, this is basically all in the first episode. So we're trying to explain things from how we understand it as a viewer. We have not read the manga. We don't understand exactly how everything works. It's just talks about all these different kinds of things and tiers and portals and stuff it's just a lot. So if it sounds like it's a lot, it was a lot.
It was a lot to take in 22 minutes.
Yeah.
It's so overwhelming if it was hey, you know what, I'm watching, I'm only going to pick 2 or 3 anime to watch, and if this really kind of catches your eye, then I'd be well, cool.
Yeah.
You'll be able to take the time to appreciate it all.
Mm-hmm.
In the situation we're in, where we're watching, if you're talking about continuing anime as well, like we're close to 20.
Yeah, right now I think for this season we picked 14, and then for continuing I think we have still 8. I can double confirm that near the end here, but it's a lot.
And this just seems like too much effort for not enough payoff right now. It could be an issue where, again, this is one episode, so could be wrong. There could be a huge payoff. It might be an anime where you watch the fights and you kind of leave everything else.
But like I've talked about, I haven't made a video about it yet. Ironically, again, the other week we had another thing go wrong where we lost the audio. So that was another obstacle. But in regards to looking at first episodes, it doesn't show a lot of promise. It could. And it's no comment on the manga, but the way it presented itself, it didn't seem like it'd be anything substantial. So if you asked me straight out if it was worthwhile this season, I'd say don't bother. If you want to, come back to it or whatever, but it seems very droppable.
Yeah, I think we're probably going to drop it. Maybe if it gets really good word of mouth for the second episode, maybe we'll continue on. But
I don't
there's
know. It
not enough hours in the day to put this into that 22-minute slot.
I feel like, which is another problem, which is another conversation, just the fact that if you know that you have so much time, you want to make the most of it, but some people like overuse that time where it's like, let's info dump the first few episodes, and then if we have time after, then we can like chill on the reins sort of thing, but that's too much.
And it was a lot of I don't know who to credit it to, but there's the whole idea of like show don't tell, where I felt like Rage of Bahamut did a really good job of
showing.
They had
It's so funny.
They had so much mythology to it. And yes, we had to actually go and do some research, but
some of it, but for the majority, right away, I was like, "That's the Archangel. That is that." Like I knew right away, just out of like the way they positioned it.
And even when I didn't know, I was really happy to do the research because the content of it was really good.
Yeah.
Here it did the opposite, where they were like, "We don't trust the audience to care enough about this, so we need to push this information."
Yeah.
Like, there's so much. There's way more political intrigue in it already than I would have thought. There's like,
it's like
the church and then like the government, and they don't really like each other, but they're both using each other. I think. I don't know.
It's one of those things where it's like they wrote not an original because it's manga, but I mean like they had an initial idea for a script for the first episode, but then like in their mind they could hear all like the Reddit comments, and they're like, well, if we just explain everything instead of showing them, they won't like have these questions, but it just raised more questions. So
I don't follow Reddit a whole lot. What is the Reddit? Has there really been any sort of a groundswell for this at all?
No one's really mentioned it, honestly. Like I'm on pretty frequently because I care about what you guys think, what's going on, blah 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 blah. But like no one's really talked about it, and those who have, it's like it's airing. Like
it's there.
It's not like, oh, this is amazing. It's not one of those. So, but I think that's all that really needs to be said about it.
I can understand why some people would like it. If you like the special effects that Fate Stay does, which a lot of people do,
but I still find that Fate Stay has more content that is latchable, than this. But anywho, next one, Dorei-ku The Animation. So basically the premise is about enslaving others. They use kind of dental implants that are removable, and basically these people both have to wear them and then invoke another into a game, and if they lose the game, they feel a sense of guilt, which causes them to become someone else's slave. And I can see
obligation, I think, was the word that we saw.
Yeah, high intrigue of obligation.
In the subtitle, yeah.
So, even though you lost, and you aren't happy about it, you know you lost, which goes into the feeling of...
The immediate thing I'll give this credit for, is in the very first episode, we meet it, like, our main character tries to figure out how you could, like, game the system, and they're like, well, no. Because she's like, what if you just remove the dental dam, then you don't have to? And he's like...
Well, don't spoil anything. They go through... Basically,
it's just the rules of the game, essentially.
Yeah, they talk about the rules of the game, and they talk about what they would do if, worst case scenario, one of them is put under mind control, so to speak. But I can see this being kind of a contentious one this season because I took a quick glance at the manga, and there's no rating on this anime yet, but I'm sure it'll be rated R. There's there's already nudity, violence, swearing,
sex,
rape, already in the first episode. So I think it'll be intense. It's one of those ones where I can't tell if it'll be any good or if it'll be really good. I have this feeling that it'll be meh. It has a great idea and concept, but I don't know if it'll be executed well.
That's why is it intriguing. It's an intriguing one, and it piques my curiosity. And the first episode, like you said, it was neither like bad enough to make you put up red flags, but it wasn't good enough where you're like, I have to keep watching this. It's more like, I wonder where this is going to go.
Yeah. You're like, how bad could it possibly... It's like a Made in Abyss situation where it's like, how bad could it possibly get? And then you keep watching.
You got to think about the people who would take the risks. They're not going to be good people who do this typically. That makes me wonder about our main protagonist and like...
Well, it makes you wonder
will change the game, sort of
what
thing.
people's drives are. Like, I can totally understand, especially one of the characters who is raped, wanting revenge. I can totally see that scenario. But then you also understand that people take things too far. Obviously, you're not allowed to kill these people, but you're allowed to do basically anything else by the rules. So it gets pretty dark. We even see some of the stuff. So it's one of those things where it's hard to say. But it's an interesting idea, at the very least. Yeah, that's really all I can say. It was basically the first episode was about the rules and some people who have already decided to use the implant. So yeah. Anything?
I'll give it. I'll when it becomes available, second episode, I will 100% watch it just to see where it will go. This isn't anything where I can be like, yeah, like 100% watch it. It's going to be dark. It's going to get darker. If that's not your bag, then like really pass it by. Yeah. But that being said, like it could go really intriguing, and you could find people who maybe are trying to use this for good, or people who are trying to fight the system. It could get to a point where people are trying to find the creators and whatnot. It could go any number of ways.
That's the thing.
My worry is that it's just going to be used as an excuse to see how bad it can get, sort of thing. Yeah. In terms of not necessarily the quality, but what they do.
When I made the Made in Abyss reference, it definitely was in regards to like as good as. I mean, just as horrifying. It's like how bad could it get, and then it keeps getting worse.
Yeah. And to quote Return of Jafar, you can't kill somebody, but you could be surprised what you can live through.
Basically.
Whoa.
So I think that's all that really needs to be said about that one. It's very straightforward. The next one is Gegege no Kitaro. And it was something I was semi-excited for because I don't think I've ever mentioned before. It was when I was younger, I used to watch it. Don't ask me how. I was always at my grandmother's house and I just watched it. And I really, really loved it when I was a kid. And now that I see it again, it's one of those ones where, for those of you who don't know, it's about yokai or ayakashi, however you want to say it. Basically, how can I say it? It's really in Japan. It's very popular, and basically every decade it's redone to make it kind of more applicable to the times. So, like the first episode was really good, where it was kind of talking about humans' impact on kind of society and the fact that like YouTubers, but it's kind of a show about yokai who try to either harm people or help them. And so we have Kitaro, our main character, who tries to help people. And it's very, very, I would say pretty wholesome in regards to like a show about yokai. It's not incredibly dark from what I've remembered. It can get, I'm not going to say it doesn't, because in past decades it's been kind of dark, but it's not like Made in Abyss dark, if I can say it that way.
So I think I didn't get the chance to watch this one. But when you were explaining it to me, it felt to me very like a Japanese Scooby-Doo
kind of.
Feel.
Like, literally, if you go back on YouTube, I'm sure they still have it. Like, every decade, they have the exact same opening song. They just changed the opener. And that's what they did this decade as well. And it's very much, it kind of reminds me of like a Scooby-Doo for Japan, because I remember when I was watching it as a kid, and I watched it all the time. And I know a lot of other kids who did too, so...
Like a monster of the week.
It's a monster of the week, definitely.
And here's, a sort of a mystery, and our main character is going to figure it out.
Yeah, find out what's causing the problem, how to get rid of them, and sometimes lean on the help of friends and things like that. And so it's very cute. I don't know if I'll be able to get around to it this season. I might just put it on hold and watch it later because I kind of know what I'm getting. If you haven't, it's pretty pleasant. It's marked as a G for all ages. It's pretty wholesome, I'll say that, as much as you can be with talking about like death and yokai. But I found it was a good time.
I mean, they have a history of it. Yokai Watch is huge in Japan, and that's like super cute, aimed for kids, and it does deal with yokai, obviously.
So it's cute, it's pleasant-ish, like I was saying, talking about death. But I find it's very much a kids show, as much as some might not believe that. And it's, yeah, if you've seen it, it's every decade. You can take a look. The characters have changed in their design. It's really interesting to look at. And I think that's all I really need to say about it. Jeff never had a chance to watch it, but that was the first thing I hopped on because it's nostalgic for me. So, so yeah. Nostalgia. Next is Golden Kamuy, which I was super excited for. But
CG bear.
I was about to say, but sadly it got a lot of flack for the first episode because the bear. Oh my god! Like
that was bad.
Let me explain. It's very good. The story and idea is very good, but about halfway through they decided to put a bear in the episode, and it's very badly. I shouldn't say very badly, but it's very poorly integrated CG, and it just looks terrible.
That seems to be like a trend with this season. There was so many. With
CG
everything
was
where it was like, ugh, oh, blah.
That's the thing. Several times this season there was like CG, and I'm like, oh, just either commit fully or don't do it. Like,
yeah,
that's.
And I mean, whatever. It doesn't really. I didn't feel like it detracted at all from the first episode. Like, I'm totally in. I'm gonna watch the entire season, even if they have more weird CG. I will just bear through it. I didn't even mean to do that. But I'll just kind of grit my teeth, get through that because the quality is very high for it, I think.
So, long story short, Sugimoto, which is our main character, survives war, and when he leaves war, he tries to kind of make the most out of like a gold rush situation, and then he hears kind of, I don't want to spoil anything, hears rumors of a greater treasure than just kind of like mining for, not mining, but sifting for gold. And basically the story behind it is very dark. It is very much going to be
this is R.
I was about to say, it's going to be definitely an R. We saw like the first episode, for example, like human beings being skinned. It's going to be dark. Just throwing that out there. But I think that the idea, it's rated R17+. So it's going to be dark. I find the story's going to be really good, though. I can't wait. I heard the manga's like really, really good. Haven't read it yet. So it's exciting. The characters that we've met already are really interesting. Jeff already likes the girl that we have, Esirpa. I believe that's how you say her name. She is really interesting. So,
and it's an interesting sort of mix of like reality and like actual history mixed with, you know, a fictional story within that history. So if you're somebody who's like kind of into that, the war that he takes part in is like a Japanese-Russian war that legitimately happened, and then this gold rush that they talk about legitimately happened in the region. So it takes some historical events and then puts, you know,
another layer of
another layer onto that, and then it talks a lot, which, you know, I haven't watched every single anime. I'm not you know, a Japanese historian or anything, but then they bring into account, you know, the different groups within Japan that don't get a lot of, they don't get talked about a lot. Like
what do you
like essentially what appears to be like Native American type people within Japan.
I see.
And like I haven't seen a lot of that in anime at the very least, out of what I've tended to watch, and so this is really intriguing to me. And what's the history of those people in Japan in comparison to what's happened, you know, in North America where we are. Mm-hmm. So it'll be interesting to see how they put everything together. At the heart of it all, it's kind of just like a really dark mystery suspense thriller almost in some ways.
It'll be interesting. It'll definitely be.
Don't want to spoil anything beyond what we've said, but it's going to be dark. It's going to be unique. and I think it's got high quality written all over it. Besides the CG bear.
Yeah, the CG bear got. That's the sad thing after it aired was the most kind of pointed fingers at it.
I mean, that's what everybody will meme, but
well, not meme. It's just disappointing to see it. Anywho, but yeah, it kind of tries to take some things in history and then kind of folds them into fiction. So it's an interesting idea. I'd have to do another video on how much is truth and how much is whatnot. But anywho, Golden Kamuy. It was really good. Mm-hmm. The next one is Kakuriyo no Yadomeshi, which is the next one on our list. And we just actually squeezed that in right before we started recording.
Yeah, and I mean there's I'm gonna call out a certain person. No, I'm just gonna say the Huber. This is a Swimming in Sevens anime 100%.
Oh, Jeff is making a reference to Easy Allies that he likes to watch.
Where sometimes you just want something that's decent, you know what you're getting.
Well, let's explain what it's about. It's about a female college student, Aoi, inherited her deceased grandfather's ability to see Ayakashi. One day she goes to feed one, and it appears to kind of pull her into the Ayakashi realm and says that she is, how can I say, collateral for her grandfather's debt and therefore being his bride. And she doesn't want to be his bride, so she decides that she wants to pay it off by working. And that's basically the premise of the show. And if really we wanted to talk about what it seems like, it's like Natsume's Book of Friends had a baby with Konohana Kitan. And a little side of Restaurant to Another World. It's like they all had a baby.
And I mean, we were already, within like 10 minutes, we were kind of calling all the story beats. And we were like, oh, this is how this is going to evolve. Because this is how the genre works. It's not as comedic as something like Konohana Kitan so far. It has its cute moments and its laughing moments, but then it can kind of turn a little like, ooh, that was a little more serious than I was thinking. But and it doesn't necessarily label itself as a comedy. Yeah, it feels very kind of like, yeah, that's good.
Yeah.
It's exactly what you would expect after watching the first episode. It's, okay.
Yeah, it's something you just kind of watch and say, okay, it's I don't find anything that'll be kind of groundbreaking or different, or it'll just be kind of pleasant to watch. Might have a couple twists because we had some kind of like antagonistic kind of hints, but really that's it. And so it'll be something pleasant to watch.
If you liked Konohana Kitan, if you find that Natsume is something that kind of interesting, or the idea of like, oh, a human is now working with Ayakashi and stuff like that, it'll probably be up your alley. Go check it out. If those things don't really interest you, I don't think there's anything else here for you. So you can skip it if it's not really.
It'll be pretty chill. So our next one, it has a long title, but long story short, it is Layton Mystery. I'm calling it. Basically, if you played any of the games of Professor Layton, it's about his daughter Katri. Spoiler alert! I forgot. Oh well, but
in the anime, it says it in the first 45 seconds.
I just realized in the game, I was like, if anyone hasn't played it, but yeah, they do in the anime. So
it's literally, the game is literally called Layton's Mystery Journal, and like, yeah, it was very obvious to anybody who cares.
Long story short, it's his daughter. Surprise! Yeah. The show itself is very much for kids. It's very pleasant, very wholesome. It's like I don't want to say it this way, but it's kind of like a glorified Blue's Clues in the sense that it's like, here's a hint, here's a hint, here's a hint. All together makes this like conclusion.
See, this one I felt was more like, I could see it being the Scooby-Doo kind of thing, where it's like, oh, we've got a group of characters who go out and go and solve a mystery. It doesn't have to do usually with ghosts or anything, but it's definitely aimed for a younger audience.
Oh, definitely. It says itself, it's like made for kids. It's like, yeah.
It's not bad. It's
not bad.
It makes me realize how much I really, really just want a Professor Layton.
Oh, anime. I would have. I was about to say, I shouldn't say that. I was about to say I would have killed that Professor Layton. Like, he is probably one of my favorite video game characters. That, other than John Marston. Which means I'll be gone for a few weeks when that comes out. But
yeah, because I mean, we got a movie, with Professor Layton, and the movie was actually really good. So you would have thought, well, hey, cool, like we could get an anime series, but it's targeted.
I even hated the
audience.
game, and it's hard for me to say because I love all Professor Layton games. The one with her just made me hate it. I just don't like her as a character. She's very much like the stereotypical girl where I eat a lot and I shop a lot. Like, it's very much like
It's her character is shallow in comparison to what Professor Layton is.
Yeah, he's incredibly charming and a pleasant gent.
It's not bad. We will probably watch it because we love Layton and like the series as a whole, and we want to support it.
And it's pretty low key. It's really pleasant. Like if you played any of the games, none of them are like horrific, literal like murders. It's just mysteries. Where like the first example is the first episode where it's like the case of like the house that eats people. Where it's like, of course it doesn't eat people. It's like Scooby Doo, where you find out exactly why these people are disappearing. So it's gonna be wholesome. It's good for all ages, and that's all I want to say because there's really not much else to say. Yeah.
You get a talking dog. Yeah.
You got a talking dog, which we had in the video game, which still isn't explained. So take that for what it is. Next one, Magical Girl Site. Another one this season that started off really dark. In a way, it's good because these are things that need to be talked about, especially in regards to bullying and how far bullying can go. I think it's going to kind of take a page from Madoka Magica in the sense where obviously it's about these magical girls, but it's also very dark, and you start finding out that things aren't as they seem. They're not like, oh, Sailor Moon, where like things seem pretty awesome. It's things are pretty dark, and people start dying.
The way that I feel about it is they took the idea of what Madoka Magica did, and then they were like, what if we just like turn
made
this
it
up
darker,
to 11?
Yeah.
And
like, what if it really...
It isn't just, it would suck to have to fight these creatures. What if we gave these powers to people who are, like, bullied, or people who have had horrific things happen to them? Like, let's just make our magical girls from people who have just had the worst things happen to them, and let's see what happens. So
it's marked as a drama, horror, psychological thriller, so to speak. Supernatural, rated R 17+, which gives you an idea. The first episode, there's attempted rape, beating, both from family members and bullies at school. You name it, it's there.
There was a few times where I like looked back, I was like, holy.
That's it. Like we both cringed. We're like, oh, jeez, that's hard to watch.
I think it's going to turn off a majority of.
It's almost like they watched Made in Abyss. It's like, oh, they must have liked the fact that kids get wailed on. It's like, oh, that's the worst part.
Yeah.
That's not what you should have taken from it.
It's just, I honestly think that we'll probably drop it just because there's so much to watch. I get why some people will like it, but I don't think it's going to have the same sort of quality that Madoka had. It's not going to have the same commentary. I don't think it's going to be like a deconstruction. It's more like, oh, hey, this is what Madoka did, and if there's a manga or something attached to this, if we're totally off base and it does end up, doing something, let us know in the comments that, it actually, it has some substance to it. So far, it's basically just been, let's see how much we can gross you out and make you feel sorry for this poor girl who's had to live a terrible life.
Within the first few minutes, you already feel sorry for her, so to crank it to 11, you're like, oh, Jesus.
It feels exploitative. Is I think the word.
It really goes on the viewer's feelings, where it's like, it's okay to push this person to murder. But anyhow, it's rather dark. We possibly will skip it because it just seems kind of gross for gross's sake. So
I feel like it's exploitative.
I wish it would have a message because I feel like a lot of things that I brought up in the first episode should be talked about, but not in a gross way, if that makes sense. So I think that's all that needs to be said about Magical Girl Site. The next one, My Hero Academia.
It's excellent. Moving on.
Yeah, that's all that needs to be said. I'm seriously, honest to goodness, this is probably going to be my favorite season because these two cores are my favorite, legit. And as soon as they had the promotional video and showed things from both cores, I was super stoked. I'm going to be honest because it made me tear up. one of the cores, and you'll find out why. It's so good. I can't imagine anything less than greatness this season like the other seasons. Animation will be on point, still a great team behind it. Like I said, the manga's so good. We're so far ahead in the manga, but I still remember these two cores like perfectly. I'm so excited. The first episode, in case you're wondering, was basically recap. Had a little bit of integration at the pool, which didn't happen in the manga, but it was basically a fun way of kind of getting you up to speed in case you hadn't watched it. So you had an idea of everyone's quirks and what they were doing and what they planned to do, yada, yada, yada. So it's really exciting. I'm really excited for you to watch it. I'm super, super, super stoked. I can't tell you how stoked I am. Jeff is just rolling his eyes because he's like, I hear this all day.
It is.
I love it.
It's right up there. My favorite shonen with Full Metal Alchemist Brotherhood. So, I mean, it is exceptionally high quality. It will continue to be so.
Yeah.
There's a reason that it won and was put up for a bunch of awards, the
Yeah.
Crunchyroll Awards. It's an exceptionally good shonen.
There's something I'd like to address, too. I've been, like I said, reading Reddit a lot. And a couple posts, actually. It wasn't just one, it was a couple. Where people were like, oh, I'm starting to lose interest in My Hero Academia because A, Deiku's a crybaby, and B, all these flashbacks are annoying me. And this is something I think I've talked about in another podcast where it's like, people always want character development, but they don't want to wait for it. And that really angers me. There's nothing wrong with My Hero Academia. They use flashbacks to get a point across, to get people up to speed on things they might have missed. And it points out a fact of why they act a certain way in that moment. Instead of being like, why would he do that? It shows like 10 seconds before why he would do it. Mm-hmm. And the fact that Deiku's a crybaby, like, how would you expect a young, like, adult to take on this fact of, like, you're going to be fighting the world. Good luck. Like, don't let me down. Like, of course you're going to be upset, and you're dealing with all these things. You're already dealing with hormones in general.
It
like,
does. The manga and the anime do an exceptionally good job of showing that, like, everybody integrates themselves into being a hero in a different way.
Yeah. And
some are, like, super jazzed about it, and they're like, I'm going to be the best ever.
Yeah.
Some are like, wow, this is a huge responsibility, and I'm worried about what's going to happen if I don't succeed. And others are like, there's a really huge expectation on me, and I hate that this is here. And there's just like a mixture of all sorts of things, which is like, that's how it would actually be.
Yeah.
Which is, it's wonderful. So.
And spoiler alert, Deku grows up. He gets very mature. He very much stands his ground as time goes on. But you have to wait and see this as a character. You have to see this development. It doesn't just happen overnight. Like, there's so many weird nitpicks about this show, which I will defend it.
The other thing that I think, and I have to sometimes remind Sugar of this as well, because she will get mad about it, especially in something like Black Clover, which does utilize the flashback a lot, probably more than it needs to.
The thing is,
I'm just
I'll let you. Oh, yeah.
When it comes to a series where you know 100%, there's no way My Hero Academia or Black Clover, unless Black Clover really tanks it, they're not going to have at least 100 episodes. So you don't know when somebody is going to enter into that series. So that's why, just like with My Hero Academia, every few episodes they do have a flashback, or they do have like a, hey, remember this, because that might be the first episode somebody ever watches. Not every person who watches anime are like us, where we are going out to actually find it. We are, we have our Crunchyroll account. We've got our Netflix account. We're watching it from beginning to end. A lot of people are going to be like, oh, wow. It's like, I know a bunch of people who got into Dragon Ball Z at the Frieza saga. So it's like,
why would they jump in there?
Well, because if they don't have, it's a different world now. But if you were just watching it on television, you were stitching by and you're like, whoa.
That's different.
What's this?
That's different.
But I mean,
in this day and age.
In Japan, though, it's probably the same thing, where these are airing on television every week, and you don't know which people, what segment of people are just joining into Black Clover at like episode 19.
But there's a huge difference, though. My Hero Academia uses it correctly, precisely.
Yes.
Whereas Black Clover uses the exact same recap at the beginning of every bloody episode. It's not part of their intro. It's a recap, and it's annoying. There's a huge difference.
Dragon Ball Z, well, it doesn't.
If they did it every 10 episodes, that'd be fine. But it's like every single episode.
Dragon Ball Z also did the whole, like, last time on
But
Dragon
that was
Ball
enjoyable, because it recapped the last episode. I totally get that, where it's like, last time on Dragon Ball Z, Vegeta, blah, 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 blah. Like, that made sense, because you're like, right, that's where we left off. But it's the exact same flashback every single episode. It doesn't change. It doesn't give, like, last time on Black Clover.
They do a little bit of flashback with, like,
a little
last
bit.
time this is what happened.
They don't even do, like, last time what happened. They'll just play over the last 10 seconds of the episode, roughly, and then they'll start going into the new one. That's what pisses me off about Black Clover, is the fact they keep replaying the flashback they've retold, and it hasn't even happened yet, so that's the thing that's also so annoying. Where it's like, everything that's happened in My Hero Academia, it's already happened! It's like, in the future, this past event will be... It's like, we haven't even seen it.
When you're putting out a series where you don't know when they're going to pop in, especially something like Black Clover has 52 episodes already promised. So they're going to do that. To
make that clear, I kind of fumbled on my words there. The recap they have at the beginning of every episode happened in the past, but we, in the future, haven't seen that entire, like, scenario play out. So it's, So anyway.
But I just say, is that if people want to nitpick about anything, they can, and they will. And I get why some people are like, I want my hero to be like Goku, where it's like, he loves to fight and he wants to jump in at every second and whatnot. But
then Goku watch Dragon Ball Z.
Goku never feels the weight of anything he's doing.
That's the thing, he's a little simple-minded.
He heals Cell, because he's like, well, we need it to be a fair fight. Like, Goku is a stupid character. He's a stupid hero. He is stupid.
He just doesn't think about stuff. It's like, oh, I want to fight, therefore.
And if you want your hero to be Superman or Goku or Saitama or something like that, then you watch those shows. This is a show, oddly enough, that's realistically looking at, when it comes to Deku, like, he's terrified of failure. He knows that essentially the weight of the world is on his shoulders, and he's going to be expressive with that. He's going to be kind of sad, and even All Might at one point is like, dude, stop crying, please. Yeah. But that's, All Might's a different person. All Might laughed at everything. Even when he was terrified, he would just be like, ho, I am here, sort of thing. And it's like, Deku is a different person.
Mm-hmm. So, long story short, excited. You should be excited. Excellent. It'll be fun. Next one, Persona 5. Definitely up Jeff's alley. I watched him play through the entire game. So, in a way, as far as I was made aware, it'll kind of be like in the sense of Danganronpa, where it'll play pretty much to key with the game, but I've been told that there's a bit of a twist near the end, so it won't be verbatim. So, we'll see.
So, when it comes to the series with Persona itself, usually what'll happen with at least Persona like 3, 4, and probably 5, they put out a base game, then they put out an anime which kind of builds upon that, and then they put out like a version of the game that has that content as well.
Yeah.
So it's very likely that they'll follow the same suit that has brought them success, where it's like, okay, here's the Persona 5 base game. Here's the animation, where we bring in some other concepts that we didn't have the time to do or we didn't think about. Because a lot of times it has been like the fan community has brought out, some ideas of like, oh, this didn't make a lot of sense to me, or this needed to be more fleshed out. And so then they do it. They actually bring in sometimes a different character or a whole different scenario that plays out towards the end. So it makes sense that it would do this. This would be the first time for me where I'm active in that discussion, I guess you could say, because I didn't get into Persona until I played Persona 3, but that was already when like the best version of the game had been released. I didn't get into Persona 4 at all. And then Persona 5, like I was on that day one, played it through the summer, and now here's the anime, which is just like, oh, it's so good. It looks good. It sounds correct. The style that is just oozing from the original game oozes off the screen with the anime.
The soundtrack is so good, too.
Soundtrack, the performances. For those who don't know, Persona, you typically take on somebody who doesn't normally have a voice. So whenever you cast the animation, like you can't have your main protagonist not speak. He doesn't speak a lot, but the voice they give him feels proper for the Japanese. It looks great. It sounds great. It's well acted, and for those who aren't going to play Persona 5, if you've never played a Persona, that type of game doesn't really interest you, this is great. The first episode went at a fairly brisk pace. It felt like they didn't add in all the stuff that you don't need. It's just going to tell the events of what happened in the game and then do something extra for us who've already played it.
The only thing I can complain about is the fact that the pacing is very high. The video game had a very nice pacing, kind of leisurely. The anime is very much speeding up a lot of things. So some encounters that usually take time to progress into in the game is very much happening quickly in the anime. And I know they want to get as much content in, but it's something that people will be like, what is happening? It's happening really fast.
Yeah, and I mean, just again, I should suppose that anybody who is listening to the podcast has a general idea, but the gameplay of Persona mixes like standard, Japanese RPG type stuff, which is that, you go into a dungeon, you fight monsters, or in this case, personas, and you gain levels, etc., etc., you fight a boss, whatever. But then, like, the other half of the game is all about social integration and interactions, and you spend time, talking, like, you have only so many hours in the day, and you're trying to, you're playing shogi with this person, or you need to go to work and make some money, or, these 4 friends want to spend some time with you. So half of the game is all about how you spend that time. I can understand why the anime can't necessarily focus on that. So yeah, 100% we are going to miss out on some really cool stories. My favorite female character that you can get with in Persona 5, I don't even know if they're going to feature her in the anime beyond like...
I saw her and I was like... It's like she walked in frame, we're like, and then she left, I was like, damn it.
But I mean, I can understand why when you make the anime, like, you can't possibly flesh out... It's 150 hours of gameplay that you're now boiling down into maybe 12 hours at the most. Like, you're gonna cut some corners here and there.
Yeah, but I'd say the pace is rather fast, even for a video game, so it's something to be wary of. So if you're kind of new to it and it seems like things are a little overwhelming, that's why. Yeah,
they also suspect that half the people who are watching have
played the game. Yeah, it definitely puts that kind of shoulder into it.
But it's like everything about it. There was no reason for me to suspect that it was going to be bad. It's been high quality so far.
Yeah. So the next one is Piano no Mori, or Piano Forest. And that was...
I feel so bad to say that I'm pretty sure that's a drop. Because, like, it has so many things going for it. And then you watch him play the goddamn piano, and it hurts my soul.
It's so creepy because you're like, oh, that's some nice animation. It's a little different than usual, but it's all right. And then all of a sudden it goes into like really horrific CG, and you're like, oh my god.
Why are those white sausages playing a piano?
That's literally, it looks like someone like had sausages for fingers, and that was the whole time Jeff and I were laughing. It's like, Daddy, would you like some sausage? Because it just looks so disturbing. And the characters, like, I can basically put money down where I was like, I can bet where this is going to go. And Jeff said the same thing where it's like, I bet you this and this. I was like, I bet you this and this. He's like, yeah, that sounds about right. Where, like, everything seems, like, very formulaic. Like, obviously we want to like it because it's music. Jeff and I both used to play music. We really like music. But
especially piano. Like, piano is just
Piano's beautiful. It's, like, a gorgeous sound. But oh my god, the CG, especially when it wasn't necessary. Like, there's this beautiful touching moment in the forest, and it's like ugly CG, and you're like, oh, make it stop. It's like, please.
If the content was of a higher quality, like, I could look past it, because it has some really nice messaging in it. It has some, there is some good stuff there, but it hurts to watch. And then you just sit there and you laugh at it.
It's like somebody...
It's not a comedy, but you laugh at it.
It's like somebody took the idea of Nodame Cantible, I believe that's how you say it, and, like, just decided to, like, I could make a better version, then ends up, like, shitting all over it. It's just like, I don't know what to say. Like, it's just weird.
So, just to let people know, the story is about... young kids. There's a new kid who kind of moves into a new town. He is
A prodigy sort of thing.
Well, he isn't the prodigy. It's the other one who I'd...
Well, can I say a trained prodigy?
Yes. So this one he's been trained his entire life. I think his father played the piano. Like, he was a like concert pianist. So this is the expectation that's put on him. Mm-hmm. And then he meets up with a kid who's kind of a little bit like... he's a bit of a troublemaker, but
he's Amadeus. He's a natural talent.
Yeah, he has had no formal training at all, and he catches on the fact that his piano teacher lagged behind a little bit on it, and
you can hear that in the
absolutely
notes.
Wonderful, and he sounds wonderful. And then there's this subplot about how there's a piano in the forest that only he can play. So it's got some weird elements to it. I get the symbolism behind it. Like, we're not simpletons. We get it.
We get it.
But the CG is really bad, and there were some weird story bits where some kids were like, "We need to see proof that you're a boy. How else are you going to prove that?
Show your penis."
Why? Why is that in there? And then the other thing I thought was interesting is the one kid sounds almost, and we checked. They're not the same voice actors, but one kid sounds disturbingly like Naruto, and the other one sounds a lot like Shoran from...
Shoran, sorry. Why did I say Sauron?
From Card Captors. So it's like, oh, so Shoran and Naruto are friends playing the piano. It's a little like...
Yeah. I always call him Lee. That's why every time we talk, I'm like, who are you talking about?
Yeah,
I gotcha.
It's probably a drop.
It's probably
it's gross looking.
It's gross. I like if you don't have to look at it, you're like, that's pretty. But if you have to look at it,
especially when if you love piano and good animation, everything like that, just watch Your Lie in April again.
Yeah, watch that again. I actually did start rewatching it because I was like, I actually want to see something like this again, but to each their own. Mm-hmm. So that's that. The next one is, I'll try and pronounce this properly, Shiyan Pin Jiating. It's basically a really interesting idea. It's the first episode is 15 minutes long, so I'm assuming that'll kind of be consistent throughout. Basically about this family. It was about the parents that did scientific experiments on their kids. The parents were seemingly arrested, and the kids are trying to make do of their life with their augmentations. And that's basically the best way to explain it. It's very sweet and endearing and sad. Ironically, it hit all those points in the first episode, and I was like, wow, that was really sad.
And I mean, the one thing that we should mention as well is that one of the kids is not experimented on.
Yeah, it's stated early on the main character isn't an experiment. The other ones are, one transforms into a dog, one is able to grow their own flowers and kind of food in the sense of mushrooms.
Yeah, they're essentially half plant, where like they don't even have to eat.
They don't have to eat, they just have to be in
sunlight
sun.
And water.
Yeah. The other one's kind of telekinetic, where she can read minds. The other one is kind of like an insect hybrid, so it has that kind of instinctual...
Very spider. I think it's spider. It's supposed
spider?
To be spider.
Okay. Kind of that instinctual, kind of like skittiness. So yeah, it's very interesting. It's a unique concept. And it's very... I think it'll be a very sweet story of like coming to terms with the kind of cards you're dealt. I think it'll be very sweet. I'm very much looking forward to it.
One of the things that I want to give it a lot of credit for is that so far, like, and it's only been 15 minutes, but I find it really unique that the only one who kind of has shown real like distaste for what the parents did is the one that wasn't experimented on, the one that's like normal, and he's like, you know, our parents did something terrible, and the other characters were just kind of like, I mean, this is just who we are. It's who we've always been. What's the problem?
That was one of the moments that almost made me tear up. Where he's like, just be normal. He's like, but this is our normal now. And I was like, oh. It was
surprisingly, like, they could have went in a bunch of different directions with it, where they could have made it really comedic and played it off for a laugh. And there are comedic beats to it. They could have went like really dark and really like tortured lives and experimentation and gone wrong and, you know, science gone awry and stuff like that. But they didn't go that heavily into that either. It's more like these are all kids trying to live together with the hand that they were dealt. And sometimes that'll be happy, sometimes it'll be sad, sometimes it'll be confusing, especially when you've got somebody who randomly is reading everybody's minds and like things that should have stayed private are not being held private. And then when they're like, why would you say that? She's like, what? Like she's just like, I get to hear everything that everybody is saying. Why should I be the only one?
Yeah.
It's really kind of just, I give it credit for being so bold as to try to approach it from almost a realistic point of view. Mm-hmm. Yeah. We'll keep it going. I can get why some people might drop it. It's not going to be the kind of thing that's for everybody, but it's good.
The next one is Steins Gate 0. I don't think much has to be said. Steins Gate was amazing. Steins Gate 0. Long story short, I won't explain Steins Gate again, but it basically is kind of off the baseline of the... How can I explain it? It's an ending where one of our characters ends up dying rather than being saved in the main story. And we get to see that dark timeline of Okabe kind of, our main character, giving up essentially the scientist persona and running into somebody who has technology that keeps memories and kind of the personality of somebody else. And I don't want to say too much else because really it is an in-depth show and you should really be watching it. It should be really good. I'm assuming, again, the season will be incredibly sad. But I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah, and we watched and probably enjoyed the dub of the original Steins Gate, maybe a little bit more than the sub. The dub is not available yet, as far as we've been made aware.
Seen, yeah.
So we are watching the sub, but I mean the performances have been great. Mm-hmm. I guess the one thing that I can say that really struck me is that they are being 100% genuine to what the long-term effects of what Okabe had to endure, what that does to someone.
Repeating history over and over and over and watching somebody you love suffer takes a mental toll.
I will say this is one of those ones that you cannot jump into this without watching Steins Gate first.
Yeah, you would be totally lost. Like, especially when you see numbers flashing on the screen, it won't make any sense to you. And especially understanding... The long story short, if you haven't heard anything about it, it's about time travel. So to understand kind of,
time travel and alternate dimensions.
I mean, to watch Zero, you should really watch the beginning. You don't necessarily have to watch the OVA or the movie, but you should really watch the original first season.
And you should anyways, because it's one of the greatest anime ever created.
Yeah, literally.
So the fact that we are so high on Zero so far, when we are literally just saying, like, if you make a top 5 today, it's in the top 5 for anime ever. Yeah. In my opinion. So
I think most people
it's already hitting that high for us when we're like, yeah, give me more.
Yeah, excited. The next one is kind of I'm not sure if we're going to keep watching or drop it. The comedy's been pretty spot on. It's Tada Never Falls in Love. Long story short, we have a girl in from a different country kind of coming into Japan and meeting somebody, and I guess that's the best way I can explain it. And things ensue.
It's okay. I mean, we'll be 100% honest about it. Not a spoiler because it's literally in the tags. One of the tags is like romantic comedy, so it's going to be a rom-com. Yeah, it is a rom-com. It follows the conventions of lots of rom-coms from this kind of situation. Mm-hmm. That being said, it definitely has comedic bits that hit really well. The only problem that I think we really have is we already know what the ending is going to be. We know all the beats that it's going to hit throughout. And so unless something dramatic were to happen where they really kind of went against convention, like we've already seen this anime a lot. And that's not to say that, I said it earlier, Swimming in Sevens, this seems like another one where like it'll be fine. It will be a fine rom-com. It'll have some good comedic bits. Does that mean that you have to watch that when you're watching 17 other anime this season? No, it's a filler anime you can watch, 2 years down the road where you're like, I don't have anything I'm watching. Let's power through, this, because I remember that was supposed to be fun. It's one that I think somewhere down the road when maybe you and I have a day, we'll like watch 6 episodes in a row and just be like, that was a good 3 hours. You know, it's just going to be one of those ones. It's not one that we have to watch immediately. Everything about it it's all right.
Then the next one is The Legend of the Galactic Heroes, the new Thesis encounter, which has been really good. I was kind of squeamish when they're like, it'll be CG, and I'm like, ugh. But it's actually been pretty good. There have been a couple moments where I'm like, but overall it's been really good. A lot about army, tactics, politics, things like that. It's very much like the original. It's very good. That's the best I can say.
We haven't watched the original, but I mean, we're obviously well aware of how highly regarded it is. I like the fact that they're just doing a reboot, and they're like, we have this great story. It's an anime that I think started in the late 80s, so it could use a bit of a sprucing up. The performances have been really good. I like the kind of realistic tone they're taking to space warfare, and the fact that, and so far, one of the coolest things that has happened is so far, like, I remember turning to you and I was like, they're supposed to be the bad guys, right? Like, it hasn't been so much about, you know, you want to see one person succeed and another person fail, as much as it's like Batman and I was gonna say Batman and and the Joker, but you know, we're going to do this dance forever. And it's about just two super smart, strategic geniuses going at it, like watching a really good chess match.
Oh darn! I remembered another one we forgot, but I'll talk about it if we're done this one.
I would just say that out of the anime that we weren't sure were going to be great, because let's be real, My Hero Academia was going to be great, Steins Gate 0 was going to be great. This is the one that I would say is maybe the highest up, at least for me, out of what's been shown thus far. Beyond this is obviously going to be fantastic.
Yeah. The next one, which I should have had earlier, but I just slipped past me, is a FLCL Alternative.
Ooh. Oh, yeah. There's a reason why we forgot about it.
It's forgettable. It's very much...
I know we're of a minority on this, but...
I know. A lot of people like FLCL. We weren't exactly in that category, and we thought maybe the second season would change our minds, and it's just as kind of, you know, out there.
It's more FLCL.
It's more FLCL and more panty shots. It's kind of not my cup of tea. I get what it's going for, but it's still not my cup of tea or Jeff's. That's the best I can say about it. It's more FLCL. It's more FLCL.
If you liked FLCL, you know, here's more.
Yeah.
If you didn't, this doesn't do anything that will change your opinion of it. And I can 100% say, again, it's not that we don't get it.
Oh,
we
totally
100% get what they were going for in FLCL.
It just
wasn't something that we really cared all that much about.
Yeah.
I think I gave it like a 6. I was like, it's fine. Like it's great that it's only 6 episodes.
Yeah.
You can power through it in 2 hours, you know.
There's going to be another one as well, but that's something else. But anywho, that's basically our thing. I guess let us know which ones you're watching and what you think. I know there's a couple we didn't get to, so hopefully we'll get around to that. That Megalo box and the Wotaku one. About office romance, and the other one obviously about fighting. And I've heard those are pretty good, so we'll see.
My hope for the Wotaku one is that we get another thing that's, you know, I just want another Mori Mori. I want another rom-com that really hits really well.
So that would be the dream and the wish. As for SAO, unless I'm super bored or like at some point get paid to watch it, I won't be watching it. Food Wars, I've never been a fan of. Sorry, not sorry.
I will give credit where credit's due. Card Captors is finally doing something that makes me actually care about what's happening. I'm like,
I still don't care.
What? This could be actually kind of interesting. Yay! That's how I feel. Yay!
Every time I think of Card Captors now, I just think of Family Guy, where it's like just 2 long boobless hours. But obviously it's more than 2 hours, and it's just really, really boring. It basically should have been called Sakura Baking, and that's the show.
Yeah, wow.
And it's like, you don't get to see anybody really develop. You know, you like Hero, we're not going to give it to you. You want to see battles, we gave you like maybe 2 episodes of somewhat battling. As for stuff we're continuing, just a really quick list: Black Clover, Boruto, 7 Deadly Sins.
That's been really good, and it's continued its pace of being really good. Reminded the world, like, hey, before My Hero Academia came along, we were the new hotness, and then they waited too long. But they're still hot. It's good stuff.
Euro Camp specials, they'll be coming out kind of intermittently, so they'll be cute, shorter ones. I think they're about
5.5 maybe.
Okay, I was about to say no more than 10 minutes for sure. But I think 5 minutes. And yeah, that's kind of our season. I don't feel like there's going to be huge standouts. I think it'll be kind of what we expect. Steins Gate, I think, will be the big showrunner. My Hero Academia. I was about to say My Hero Academia, the 3rd season, will be a definite standout. And I think Golden Kamuy will, even though it's shortcomings with the CG, I think it'll stand up as well. And I think Galactic Heroes is what we expected. It should have been high for quality, a reason.
You know? And Persona 5, again,
Persona 5, I don't know if it'll do well, because like I said, it heavily leans on the fact that you played the game, and a lot of people haven't gotten around to playing it. It's not that it isn't good, it's just really fast-paced to the point where you're like, I don't get a lot of what's happening, you know what I mean?
Yeah, it's only been 1 episode, so
I know, but even if somebody came in, it wouldn't make a lot of sense.
Well,
so it makes it also harder to dip into.
They'll explain it in episode 2 what's happened.
You hope. If not, I'll just keep going full
The game goes the same way, where it's like, wait, what's happening? Huh? Woo? And then it kind of is like, oh yeah, by the way, this is what happened.
Even in the first episode, before we have our moments, things are a bit explained. So as I get still rushed into it, but either way, it should be decent, if not good.
It's definitely been a step down in terms of season quality. Overall.
I think we'll have like 3 or 4 really big standouts, and then the rest will kind of be meh. But we'll see. We've had surprises before in seasons, but that's just kind of my own interpretation. Ones that we've always expected. Like, we've been waiting for a long time for Steins Gate 0. My Hero Academia, I've waited ever since I started reading the manga. And Galactic Heroes, I actually hadn't heard that they were remaking it until semi-recently, so I hadn't been waiting a long time for that.
It's nice that we don't have to watch the original, because it was a pretty long-running anime, so now we'll watch this.
And a friend of mine really loved the manga for Golden Kamuy, so I was always excited for that. As for the rest, it was just kind of a meh season.
Swimming in 7s.
Or less, depending on some of them.
Yeah.
So yeah, let us know what you're watching. We're happy to have you back. Sorry for the break. Hopefully nothing else goes wrong, but I can't promise anything because I'm a walking disaster. So yeah, any other thoughts, Jeff?
Nothing in particular. If you're the kind of person who really just prioritizes the standout anime, this is going to be finally a season where maybe it can be a little bit more calm. Because even the stuff that is continuing, it isn't necessarily anything that's like, oh my god, this is amazing. Except for, 7 Deadly Sins is probably a high 8. And when it's really hitting, it's a 10.
Yeah. And we haven't gotten to... Well, Overlord is done for its season, but we haven't finished for the dub. So we're still kind of theoretically following that as well.
Overlord's awesome.
Yeah, it's been really good. So, thank you so much for joining us. And until next time, we'll see you later.